Hello again to another Agricolor React. Today we'll be watching how is the United Kingdom so rich? I guess it's because all of the old colonies. And the video is made by the Geography Bible. All of the links in the description box below. And let's just get into it and just start.
How on earth can the country which is the 80th largest by land size in the world,
Really? It's
with
only
the
80th?
21st largest population, have the 5th largest economy on the planet? With an economy size of around 3.1 trillion US dollars, the United Kingdom stands as the country with the 5th highest GDP in the world,
Germany
placing
bigger though,
them
huh?
above India, a nation with a population over 20 times larger and 13 times more land size. So how is this relatively small country so damn rich? In this video, we shall find out. Alright, before we begin, let's have some quick fire financial statistics, so that we've got some reference and baseline for understanding the wealth of the UK. The UK as a whole comprises of 4 different countries: England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. Great Britain is just the island part, so it excludes Northern Ireland. It has a GDP of 3.1 trillion US dollars, a GDP per capita of just over $46,000, an average salary of $41,000. It exports $837 billion worth of goods. The average house price across the UK is $367,000 US dollars. However, the average house price in London is $705,000 US dollars. I've always thought that apart from London, the UK doesn't really have any super sprawling megacities. Birmingham and Manchester are pretty big, relatively speaking, but it's nothing like China, the US or India for example, who have multiple megacities with gigantic skyscrapers and sprawling city spaces. Fun fact, China actually has over 100 cities with more than 1 million population. According to the UK Office for National Statistics, or the ONS, the services sector is the largest sector in the UK, accounting for more than 3/4 of the GDP. The service industry in the UK comprises of many industries, including finance and business services, consumer-focused industries
Finance
such as
and
retail,
business.
food
There you
and
go.
beverages,
That's the answer to
and
it.
entertainment. Manufacturing and production contribute to less than 21% of the total GDP, and agriculture contributes to just 0.6%. First of all, let's take a more in-depth look at GDP, the gross domestic product. This is how much a country produces and measures how big its economy is. Production translates into income because everything produced and sold gets paid for, and those payments find their way into somebody's pocket, whether through wages, rents, returns on stocks, or pensions. The USA is by far the largest economy by GDP, with over 20 trillion US dollars, nearly a quarter of the global production. This gives it a huge clout in international relations. The market size means it can dictate terms on accessing its market, as other countries would love to access such a market. As mentioned earlier, the UK's GDP is around 3 trillion, which puts it 5th in the world, about 3.3% of global production. This makes the UK a very important global economy. On GDP, China is the second largest, with around 13 trillion and rising, putting it at around 15 or 16% of the world's production. Next, GDP per capita. This shows roughly how rich a country's citizens are. By dividing GDP by population, it shows how much each person gets if wealth was shared equally, which of course does not happen, but it's still a useful measure. So while GDP shows how large an economy is, GDP per capita shows how rich it is. On this measure, the UK is around 22nd in the world, with around 43,000 US dollars, well below the likes of Monaco and Luxembourg, but still not too bad. The UK led the way in industrialisation in the late 18th century and developed many industries and institutions that have helped it retain a strong economy. These institutions cannot emerge overnight, and currently very poor countries are developing them, but it will take lots of time. These institutions include rule of law, property rights such as physical and intellectual, competition law, an independent central bank, democracy, contract law, political checks and balances and independent judiciary, bankruptcy laws, welfare state, and compulsory schooling. All of these things help the economy by helping a secure business environment and boosting human capital, that's skills and innovation. People invest knowing the government will not steal their capital. The UK scores very highly on the World Bank's Doing Business report, which measures the business friendliness of the country's regulations. It is kind of a flawed index, but can be used as a snapshot here to show that the UK values business and economic growth. Because of historically accumulated capital and skills, the UK has a huge productive capacity, strong innovation potential, and low costs. And these features make it competitive relative to countries that do not have these human and physical capital endowments. It has a very diversified economy, producing in many different sectors, including many high-value ones such as aerospace supplies and semiconductors. Just recently, Prime Minister Boris Johnson has vowed that the UK will become a superpower in terms of AI, technology and innovation within the next decade. Many poorer countries have not got much past their primary resource export,
This is
which
October
are
2021,
low-value
okay.
added. This lack of diversity also makes their economies vulnerable to global price dynamics, as primary commodities tend to have volatile prices. The UK and other rich economies with diverse productive bases can absorb price shocks in any sector. If the price of cars were to suddenly fall, then the UK is still producing aeroplanes and semiconductors, so it can afford to take the hit. But if the likes of oil falls, then places like Saudi Arabia will be hit extremely hard and may not recover. Also, because of historically developed institutions, the UK has relatively stable monetary policies, which are good for business confidence, investment and international trade. The UK has a leading position in economic affairs to the UN Security Council, OECD, IMF, World Bank, and its role in giving aid, all of which allow it to defend its interests abroad, although this is not the only purpose that the UK is involved in these institutions. Also, having a large global market, remember it is the 5th largest in the world, allows the UK some scope to dictate terms to access its market for foreign exports. The UK has a strong financial centre, partly due to the language. English is of course the international business language. Its location at 0° longitude can capture the trading hours of both New York and Tokyo, thus the span of the global finance industry, its proximity to EU, a huge trading bloc, and having historical core competence in finance. Historically, the UK benefited from imperialism, looting its colonies and imposing unequal trade treaties on weaker countries in order to take advantage of them and capture most of the benefits of their trade. Look at the East India Company, for example. The rich countries, it could be argued, still take advantage of poorer ones through inciting if poor countries want aid. They do not set protective tariffs that the rich countries themselves used during their own development to nurture industrial development. They impose on poor countries a development model that they did not themselves use and which has many flawed problems. Free market, open borders to capital, and no policies. In short, allowing the advanced Western firms to come in and capture the market. So yes, the UK is still rich, and it is likely to continue to be relatively rich for the near future, because so many of its advantages are due to historical legacy that give the UK huge development advantages and global power and influence. But the UK is not perfect, it does have problems. As stated earlier, per capita measures ignores wealth distribution. The UK has pretty high inequality for a rich country. Figures from Parliament show it is as high as the 1960s and 70s as it is now. The UK is also home to a number of large energy companies, including 2 of the 6 oil and gas superpowers, BP and Royal Dutch Shell. The UK is also rich in a number of natural resources, including coal, tin, limestone, iron ore, salt, clay, chalk, gypsum, lead and silica. Forbes also rated the UK as the best country in the world for doing business. The UK also ranks as the 2nd best country in the world for startups, only behind the US, and ranks as the 8th best country in the world for ease of business. The fact that English is classed as the language of business and billions of people around the world either speak it fluently or as a second language highly benefits the UK. It makes doing business easier and increases efficiency drastically. Imagine a Japanese businessman who only speaks Japanese trying to close a deal with an Ethiopian man. This would prove rather difficult and would require a very specific and unique translator to assist. You may have heard heard of this little old city in the southeast of England called London. London is classed as the financial capital of the world, sometimes described as the city of cities because each borough is completely different to the next. London is the world's most international and connected financial centre, providing unrivaled access to global markets. It is a magnet for workers from around the world who make up a very diverse pool of financial and professional service specialists. In other words, London is the most influential and important city in the world when it comes to financial markets and business. It is the capital of the former most powerful colony on Earth, and although in the 21st century this no longer exists, its unrivaled importance and an opportunity still remains. London is the world capital for foreign exchange trading with a global market share of 43% of the daily 6.6 trillion global turnover. One of the world's most visited cities, London has something for everyone, from history and culture to fine food and exceedingly good times. With such diversity, London's cultural dynamism makes it among the world's most international cities. It is a city of ideas, an innovator of art and culture. Yes, for the average Joe, it is expensive and life can be quite challenging at times, but for the mega rich, it is a city where business and money is to be made in vast amounts. Incredibly, although the UK is the 5th largest economy in the world and completely dwarfs many larger countries in terms of GDP, out of the top 100 highest market cap companies in the world, only 2 are from the UK. AstraZeneca, the guys who developed one of the COVID-19 vaccines, and Linde, a chemical and gas company worth 172 billion and 160 billion respectively. The UK also does make a considerable amount of income from tourism, pre-pandemic of course. With over 40 million visits in 2019, inbound tourism contributed to around 28 billion to the British economy, although just over half of that was spent in London, which was the 3rd most visited city in the world, 21.7 million, behind second place Bangkok and first place Hong Kong. So although the UK is completely and utterly dwarfed by the likes of USA and China in terms of economy size,
I'm surprised that, like, let's say New York or
as their populations and land size
any
are astronomically
city in
bigger.
States
The UK
was a number
overall
1 or
is
2.
a friendly, welcoming place, and London is one of the most sought after cities to live and work in the world. In my real life job, I work with so many people from across Europe and the world, and they all say how moving to London is everyone's dream. If you want to progress your career and let your dreams come true, then London is the place to be. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please feel free to drop a like, and if you love this sort of content and learning about geography from around the world, consider subscribing. It is completely free, and we've got plenty more to come, and you can unsubscribe at any time. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you very soon in the next video.
That was interesting take on it. So I was mistaken, because obviously I went straight into the history and the colonialism and all that. Although the probably roots of everything is it is rooted in the colonialism, but then can I explain it? What do you think? Is he right about it? I think he is. Okay. I'll be going now, and thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.